What if Jaime Lannister never joined the Kingsguard? Let's explore the depths of it in the video. Tywin was rather surprised to hear from the king, but bowed as he was told, and bowed before him as the Mad King sat atop the throne.
Your Grace, you sent for me.
I have. As you are aware, there is now an opening for the Kingsguard, given the passing of Ser Harlan Grandison. This leaves a position open in my Kingsguard.
Indeed it does. Do you require help in selecting a new knight to fill that slot?
Oh, I have already received a list of names, including your own daughter, who put forward her brother as a potential member. Sir Jaime Lannister, the young lion. It would make him the youngest knight to ever be inducted into the Order. A great honor.
But his voice trails off. Tywin's brows knit together, as this is the first time he's heard of such an order. He certainly had never suggested such a thing. He was already waiting for Lady Lysa to arrive to push the match between Jaime and her.
Your Grace, you honor me by selecting my son for such an important position. The whole realm knows of his skill with a sword and lance.
Enough of this prattle, Tywin. The whole realm knows he is a Lannister, another lion to add to my court. Do you think of replacing the dragons with lions, Tywin?
Your Grace, I assure you I have no such plans to—
Enough! Do not insult me with your denials. I know what you are planning, and to do so while hiding behind your daughter's skirts. I expected more from you, Tywin. This was my mistake. Well, I do not wish to disappoint you, but I will not have my hand dictate who shall be my protectors. I have considered it, but I rejected this offer.
Tywin can only grind his teeth and bow stiffly, as the king dismisses him with a wave of his hand. But as he departs, it isn't anger that fills Tywin's heart, it's relief. He has no idea why Cersei would suggest such a thing, but he is glad it did not come to pass. All of that would have thrown his plans into question, but now he can move forward with his marriage arrangements. When news arrives that this match is rejected, Cersei is devastated, and Jaime goes pale. Just as his sister had predicted, Tywin brings forth Lysa Tully as a potential match for Jaime. While Tywin gives the appearance of choice, everyone knows that Jaime has no say in the matter and is forced to agree to the match. While Lysa seems pleased with the prospect of having a gallant young knight as her husband, Jaime is left to shudder as he walks out with his new wife. In his place, Harlan Grandison is replaced by Sir Alliser Thorne, who serves loyally as one of the king's protectors. He stands by Aerys throughout the years, even as he begins burning men alive and rebellion springs up. Meanwhile, though, Jaime is wed to Lysa. He remains in Castle Rock, where Tywin begins grooming him to serve as his heir. He meets with dignitaries, manages their finances, and visits his bannermen. While Jaime proves competent enough, he has little love for this task and sees it as tedious. More importantly, for most of his early years, it is Tywin who truly decides everything as Jaime follows his policies. When Robert's rebellion breaks out, Jaime wishes to rally the Westerlands and join with the rebels. He has little love for Aerys, seeing him as responsible for his position. He knows his father would agree after enduring years of insults from the Mad King. And yet, while Jaime suggests marching out and rallying their full strength behind Jon Arryn in the north, Tywin refuses.
You think this is the first time some great houses have rebelled against the Targaryens? A dozen usurpers would be kings have risen up against the dragons. The Dornish, Baratheons, Peaks, and most recently Lord Darkland. I think you, of all people, know how that ended.
But those were individual houses and regions. Now the North, Vale, and Stormlands are standing together. There are even rumors that the Riverlands will declare for them. They have the strength of half the realm. That seems different.
Yes, it certainly could be different. Or it could end as all these uprisings do, with fire and blood.
But we are allied with the Riverlords. They will expect us to help them if they join the Starks. Else why would Hoster Tully agree to this marriage?
You certainly are correct there. We are allied with them, but that does not mean we join them if our allies run into a fire. So, we shall send a token force, large enough that our allies will notice our contribution, but not so large that we can be accused of treason should things turn badly.
Tywin decides that a force of 6,000 shall be large enough. However, he insists that no Lannister take part, lest they be implicated in the war if rebels lose. Instead, Lord Westerland is placed in command. He rules an old but impoverished house, so the promise of rich rewards is enough to entice him. But his death will not be a great loss should he fall. So the small army rides out, leaving Jaime to watch from Castle Rock as he hears reports of the action. The Lannister expedition performs well, joining the rebels as they win a string of victories across the Stormlands, Reach, and then the Riverlands. The greatest of these battles comes in the Trident, where the Westermen guard Robert's left flank, ensuring the Dornishmen cannot outflank them. This allows them to hold until Robert slays Rhaegar and leaves his body to tumble into the Ruby Ford. With their success here, the rebels' victory is all but assured, and Tywin finally decides to fully commit their strength to this war. He knows the other lords suspect him of hedging his bets, so the Westermen must do something big to secure their position in the new government. Tywin personally leads 12,000 men out, but instructs Jaime to hold the rock until he returns. He cannot risk losing both him and his heir in what will happen next, especially with the Mad King involved. Thankfully, the first part of his plan goes smoothly, as when he arrives in King's Landing, Grandmaster Pycelle is quick to join Tywin and open the gates for him. This promptly leads to the sack of the city, as his men clash with the surviving royalists. Though they are defeated, the Targaryen men put up a strong fight, and lead to brutal street-to-street fighting. Tywin loses many good men in this combat, but he continues to drive his forces toward the Red Keep. He knows this is the last desperate resistance of the Targaryens. Nothing more. Still, he is glad that Jaime is not there, since the royalists launch deadly ambushes on him and take out many knights. It would not be difficult to imagine his son getting caught in one of these. He has no idea about the wildfire beneath the city, or that Aerys gives the command to his pyromancers. As the Lannister men bring up battering rams to strike at the Red Keep's wall, Aerys' men get to work and ignite caches across the city. A thunderous boom echoes across the city as the Sept of Baelor suddenly erupts in an explosion of emerald fire. It spills out from the glass like blood from a wound, while its windows and roofs shatter into fragments. They stare out in surprise, watching just as the dragon pit follows. Old stones are thrown across the air for miles and land on the street like rain. Slowly, the Lannister men begin to panic. Some seek cover, others raise their shields above their heads, and more simply drop their weapons and run. But if they think that makes them safe, they are mistaken, as the ground beneath them follows. It opens as in a fissure of green flames that explodes to outwards, consuming royalists and rebels alike. Tywin is just outside the blast zone. He pulls his horse back and tries to reel away. He tries to move away, but the fires spread and eventually consume him and the rest of the city. The Mad King laughs from the Red Keep, watching it all burn as he soon joins them. Soon, the entire city goes up, leaving the rebels to find the capital a smoking ruin. As they survive the city and see the full extent of the damage, the sheen of their victory, weeks away, disappears. The next few days are spent searching for survivors, walking through the ruins and trying to pay their respects to the fallen as best they can. It is grim work, and by the time they finish, the men look like they've gone to another war. But the things they see here are more horrific than anything they had encountered before. Among a group of corpses, Ned comes across a golden clasp. It is burned almost beyond recognition, but Theory can make out the vague details of a snarling lion. They immediately know who it belongs to, and Ned feels his spine shiver. Though he does not like Tywin Lannister, by trying to take the city first, he had inadvertently done the greatest service to the rebellion. Robert and Jon Arryn set up shelters for the few survivors and plan their next move. Many of the remaining Targaryen loyalists immediately bend the knee. They are equally horrified by the results of this plot. On Dragonstone, the garrison is fully prepared to get rid of the surviving Targaryen children, but they are saved only by Sir Willem Darry and Barristan Selmy, who escape captivity in the chaos. As he arrives at the castle, his mind is full of regrets for all the things he had failed to do, but worst of all was not seeing the monster the Mad King had become. Now he arrives there with a new mission, to ensure the remaining children do not end up the same way. As he helps Sir Willem carry the Targaryen children out one night, he holds Viserys close to his chest, but the boy king sees the green smoke rising in the coast where his father's capital once was. The sight brings him to tears. Thankfully, the following chaos ensures that no one follows them. Jon Arryn focuses on rebuilding and reorganizing the Seven Kingdoms. There is no question that Robert will become king, fresh off his victory against Rhaegar. However, he is a king without a capital. Some suggest moving to Old Town, others to Storm End or Dragonstone. Instead, he focuses his efforts on Duskendale. It is only a day's sail away from King's Landing, allowing the survivors to easily relocate there. It also occupies the same strategic trading area as King's Landing, letting them begin their realm in relative peace. But that is just the first step. Next comes uniting the fractured houses. While the Lannisters remain an important family with Jaime at its head, their influence is not so great. The young lord doesn't command the same power as Tywin. While the gifted warrior, he is an average administrator. This leaves the Lannisters less important, and Jon Arryn instead focuses on winning over Dorne. While there is some resentment from the rebels for killing Luwin Martell, they recognize that he was killed in combat. Much of their ire is instead directed towards the Targaryens, who killed Elia. This leaves Dorne amenable to an alliance, and when Jon Arryn visits on behalf of the new king, they agree to a marriage pact between Robert and a cousin of Dorne, Lady Samira Martell. In the Dun Fort, no wildfire lingers in its stones, no mad king prowls its halls, but Robert Baratheon still feels the weight of the crown beneath him. He sits atop the Iron Throne, miraculously undamaged from the wildfire and carefully transported from the Red Keep to his new seat. He feels the weight of his responsibility, though wine and laughter softens its edges. Samira of Dorne sits at his side, casually pouring him another cup and blowing him a kiss. Their marriage, meant to soothe the old wounds of rebellion, proves unexpectedly joyful. She drinks with him, feasts with him, and most of all, she listens to him. Once she finds him awake at night, drunk and weeping at the thought of Lyanna. Rather than take offense, Samira squeezes his hand and comforts him. She looks at him without judgment in her eyes.
You must despise me for this, weeping for another woman on our bed.
This was not a marriage of the heart, my king. It was one of politics, to mend a bond that was broken. I do not begrudge you if I am not the one who fills your heart, just as you should not begrudge me if you should not fill mine.
Together they strike a bargain. They will have a true-born heir, but beyond that, they grant each other freedom. Robert's bastards are no scandal to her. She welcomes them into court, smiling as they gather like storm clouds across the realm, and Robert grants her the same freedom, offering no judgment, and on several occasions threatening those who speak ill of his wife. Nearly 24 from houses both great and small, each one a thread binding Robert and Samara to the realm in ways no treaty could. When their daughter is born, Robert names her Brela. She is a child of storm and sun, dark of eye and with a temper like fire, adored by her mother and spoiled by her father. Though their only true-born child, she is surrounded by her siblings, a set of twins from Samara and Black Walder, a sister from Robert and Melora Hightower, and a chunky child sired on Pike during the Greyjoy Rebellion. Samira convinces Robert to declare Brela as his heir, just as Viserys did to his daughter. While Stannis warns of another Dance of Dragons, their rule stands on much firmer ground, and their bastards play a surprising role. Each one is not hidden, but welcomed by Robert and Samira, and by extension, the court. They also make sure that these houses are given gifts and other rewards to show their favor, but they warn that such gifts only come so long as they support Brela. They can be easily taken away, and their bastards put in their place. This creates a delicate equilibrium in the realm, allowing them to live in relative peace. In the Westerlands, the lions lick their wounds. Tywin is ash beneath the ruins of King's Landing, leaving Jaime to rule a house diminished. His marriage to Lysa Tully is bitter, empty of warmth. He finds solace where he should not, back in Cersei's arm. But Cersei, ever pragmatic, sees the trap they're in. House Lannister needs strength, and her remaining unwed raises questions which could draw eyes to their affair. She cannot remain unwed. Together they settle on Cerys Valerian, the aged, disgraced former master of ships. He is wealthy in bloodline but poor in coin. He already has adult children in the form of Sir Monfred and his bastard brother, Auron Waters. This leaves them little need to consummate. What Lucerys truly wants is wealth, something the Lannisters oblige. Gold pours from Casterly Rock to Driftmark to rebuild House Valerian. The island was once a wealthy trading destination, and now they make it again. At the heart of the Blackwater Bay, it allows the Lannisters to shadow court and regain some lost influence in court. While Cersei quietly resumes her forbidden bond with Jaime, their secret affair is cloaked by Lucerys' failing eyes and indifferent ears. But the whole time they think to themselves subtly. They did not notice the prying eyes of Auron Waters. Meanwhile, Brela grows up as the undisputed heir to the Iron Throne. That is in thanks part to her mother's cunning, her father's strength, and the gaggle of bastard siblings she grew up with. She has brothers from the North and Stormlands, and her sisters from the Reach and Riverlands. Their numbers increase almost every year, and yet their parents make one thing clear: family is family. While Brela is the heir, they make sure to dote upon all children to ensure there is no resentment, no anger between them. Because of that, she grows up in a household unlike any other. For her mother, Brela learns grace. She is taught to dance in flowing silks, to smile with poise, and to charm the court with a glance. From her father, she learns strength. One day, he places a miniature halberd in her hands after seeing her admiring it and laughing as she swings the weapon, nearly toppling her maester. But under his father's tutelage, her strikes grow sharper, her stance steadier. until she can keep up with her older siblings. Samara, ever watchful, teaches her the subtle arts of rule. Brela's siblings quarrel often about toys, training, and who will sit closer at supper. This is the perfect training ground for the future queen. Here stand sands, snow, storms, stones, and more. Her mother places the first major task of ruling, to settle disputes and become their leader. She must be firm but fair, reminding her brothers and sisters that she is heir, but also blood. With each small judgment, Brela learns the harder art of ruling. She faces it all from them, screams, sobs, harsh words, and curses. It is only one thing from the courtiers, but dealing with her siblings proves difficult. Yet she does, bit by bit, argument by argument. She learns to handle each one and how to appease them. And while some never say it to her face, all come to regard her as their leader, as one fit to rule not just because of her blood, but because she puts in the effort and has the ability. Her parents watch all of this, smiling and feeling their pride grow. Renly becomes her favorite companion. The young lord delights in festivals and feasts, and together they sneak into tourneys, laughing behind masks and tossing coins at jugglers. Robert spoils her endlessly. Fine gowns of Dornish silk one day, and a silver filigreed spear the next. Samara grants her freedom, letting her wander the gardens, the libraries, even the bustling streets in disguise. Brela grows up bold, restless, and adored. Far from her, Viserys Targaryen grows in shadows. Hidden in a modest house, he lives with his sister under the watchful eye of Sir William Darry and Barristan Selmy. The wildfire that consumed King's Landing left marks on the boy that no maester bomb could erase. Those in his mind and heart. Every day, Viserys curses himself for being born a Targaryen into a house that has brought so much death and destruction. He whispers to his sister at night that their name is cursed. He dreams of green fire, of screams, of the ravings he heard his father mutter, and the terror in his mother's eyes. They never stop. To him, the Targaryen name is a ruin. But Sir Barristan refuses to let the boy drown in bitterness. He insists on taking part in training the boy, giving him an education befitting a prince. He shows him the arts of swordplay, history, and writing. Viserys takes these lessons, though only out of habit rather than a genuine desire to learn.
You have been good to me, sir, but please stop treating me like I'm a prince. The day my family rules is the day the world shall burn.
You must not blame yourself for the sins of your father.
And what of the rest of my line? You say I deserve to rule, but we have the likes of Maegor the Cruel, Aegon the Unworthy, Daeron Bright Flame, and countless more monsters.
And just as many heroes. Jaehaerys the Conciliator, Aegon the Fifth, and Daeron the Good. You say I serve you to make you king, but it is more than that. I wish for you to learn from my own mistakes.
Your mistakes?
They say when a Targaryen is born, the gods throw a coin to see if it lands in madness or brilliance. I had long seen which side your father ended up on, but rather than put a stop to it, I stood back and did nothing. I told myself that madness would pass, that it was not my place to decide how the kingdom is run. And I went away inside each time, and he burned a man alive. Each time he ordered a house extinguished, each time he took your mother. My boy, if you must hate someone for what happened, then hate your father and me, but never hate yourself for what you could not control.
So is my rule to fix what was broken? To finish my father's story?
No. I will not have you finish the story that was already done. I want you to write your own story.
For the first time in his life, Viserys feels the members of pride stirring. Pride in his name and in himself. The knight devotes himself to shaping Viserys into the man his house needs. He drills him in swordplay, tutors him in history, and tempers his resentment with the hard lessons of honor and mercy. When Viserys rages, Barristan teaches patience. When Viserys despairs, he teaches duty. By manhood, the old knight finds a man he can look with pride. Viserys is no cruel princeling. He is quite melancholic, thoughtful, a boy turned man who speaks not of conquering thrones, but of atonement, of becoming worthy of respect. And from the shadows, the Valyrians stand in between. Cersei remains the Lady of Driftmark, even as her old husband passes away. Neither she nor his children shed any tears for the man, but instead turn their attention to the future. By now, 3 children have been produced to the lady, but Jaime claims they are his and Lysa's. The Lady of Castle Rock dotes on them. All 3 are beautiful and golden-haired, yet she doesn't care. She believes they are hers, and nothing in the world will make her see otherwise. Yet in reality, each time this occurs, it happens just as Jaime personally delivers additional gold bullion. The two constantly make excuses to visit each other and continue their hidden relationship. The new Lord of Driftmark, Lord Manfred Valerian, pays little attention to them or his siblings. His interest is only in restoring the power of his ancient house, and to some level he manages to accomplish this. In a few years, the fishing villages around Driftmark grow into traditional towns. Their fleet of skiffs turn into galleys, and their dreary halls of their castle fill with gold, spices, and silks. But while the new Lord of the Tides prides himself on that, the truth of the matter is that much of what belongs to Lannister gold are in waters. The bastard brother of Mondred is charming where he is arrogant, laughs where his brother sneers, and warms where his brother is cold. It is he who wins over merchants to set up their warehouses there, who convinces knights to enter the household. Cersei has even less love for the man. While she had longed for a silver-haired prince, and the Valerians always looked the part, Manfred seems to regard her as little more than a wench, and she vows one day that her children shall rule this place. And one day, as Jaime stops to collect payments for another loan given to Manfred, he visits Cersei's room. They blow out the candles and proceed in silence, thinking themselves alone, and letting themselves forget all their troubles as they simply enjoy each other. Yet, as they finish and Cersei prepares to depart, there is a sound coming from the end of the hallway. The Lady of Driftmark turns to see a shape running off. She immediately follows her and chases the girl down the hall. The servant yelps and tries to hurry down the steps, but runs face to face with Auron Waters. In a second, he has the girl pinned against the wall and a knife held up against her, the dim light reflecting off its steel surface.
Simple creatures, are they not?
You have my thanks, my son.
Of course. We can't have slanderous lies like that spreading. Having a bastard like me is already enough shame for my brother, dear Lord Manfred.
Indeed, this isn't Duskendale.
No, it's far from some dying port town. Our house was near collapse and has risen again in the span of a few years, thanks to you, my dear. We can't have rumors like this ruining everything.
Now there is a smart man.
It raises the question, where shall we stand in a decade from now? Driftmark is an old castle and beautiful, but it is small and hardly fitting for one as grand and ambitious as you or me. Surely you want more for your children than to be boys and scrape before our dear Lord Manfred.
Are you sure you are not referring to yourself?
I would be lying if I did not think the same way too. But am I wrong?
Certainly not, but who would make such bold claims? Typically, I have a plan.
Indeed I do. I am not so young that I do not remember the time of House Targaryen. I grew up with stories of the sea snake and a demon Valerian. Under the dragons we had wealth, power, and titles. Because of the Lannisters, we now have one. But as long as we live under the drunken king and his whore queen, we shall never have the others.
You speak truly, and yet the dragons are gone.
Not gone, simply hidden. And I have walked the piers and spoken to the commoners. There are still those who long for the days when the dragon sat the Iron Throne.
As the two share a smile, Auron begins gathering allies. Although Robert rules relatively well and the people despise the Targaryens, there are always stirrings of unrest. Many houses lost much of their wealth and influence due to this serving the Targaryen dynasty, and their desire to reclaim it overshadows their honor and the Mad King's actions. Houses like Derry, Goodbrook, and Connington are just a few among the many houses that desire to reclaim their lands, and then others simply desire to see their star rise. Opportunists who do not see that potential under Robert, but might see it under a newer, less established king. Soon he finds allies like Littlefinger, who begin plotting with him to search for the last Targaryens and raise them to the Iron Throne. His spies soon track him down to Braavos, and as the Master of Coin Lord Baelish proposes organizing a delegation to visit the Iron Bank to secure a loan in order to further improve Duskendale and turn it into a proper city. Among the delegation is Brella and her eldest brother, Jory Sand. Robert and Samira agree that it will give her some experience in ruling. The harbor of Braavos is alive with noise, gulls shrieking overhead and ships creaking against their moorings. Brella Baratheon steps off the galley with her brother Jory Sand at her side, her banners snapping in the sea wind. The delegation consists of Littlefinger, Renly, and several prominent nobles. This pomp is meant to meet the Iron Bank and convince them to fund an additional loan to upgrade Duskendale's port. As a result, word of the king's daughter in the city spreads. Braavosi eyes follow her, some with awe, some with calculation. Elsewhere in the city, the Dragon Knights march. A sellsword company, steel helms glinting, their sigil a silver dragon's head painted across crimson shields. And their most distinctive feature, a pair of wooden dragon wings sprouting from the back of their rider's breastplate. Their captain is Viserys Targaryen, along with Sir Barristan beside him, his pale hair catching the last light of the day. Behind them is Daenerys, who serves as the company paymaster. To the Braavosi, he is not the Mad King reborn, but a commoner who keeps discipline, pays his men fair, and treats the small folk with respect. Because of that, his men find regular work in the city from the merchant princes and even the Sea Lord. The negotiations with the Iron Bank are long and exhausting. Neither Littlefinger nor their representative is inclined to give an inch. Littlefinger boasts that he has never once lowered his price and presses them harder. Brella listens to the talks, nodding her head and occasionally interjecting her opinion, though her job is mostly to soothe tensions whenever tempers flare. Still, she is happy to spend the rest of the day exploring the city with her brother and younger sisters, Walda Rivers and Maya Stone. They enjoy the sights, taste the exotic food, and visit the markets that dwarf even their new capital. But as they finish up in the markets and head home through the winding alleys, Jory frowns and notices some cloaked men trailing them. He says nothing at first, not until he sees one draw steel from the folds of his garments. Suddenly, Jory lets out a whistle and whirls around. In seconds, 4 guards are with him, weapons drawn. As one hands the big Dornishman his axe, he smiles and winks at his sisters.
Rally to me. Rally to me.
The guards form a protective semicircle and quickly engage the cloaked figures, who draw swords and knives. But while they are occupied, 2 more appear from the opposite end of the alley. Brella has her halberd out in seconds and sweeps it forward, catching one with her axe head while the other runs into Maya and Walder's knives. They hurry out of the alley as Jory finishes off the last of the men. And yet, when they arrive in the open street, they find a dozen more men waiting for them. The small party tightens in formation and pushes Brella behind. But then, they hear it, a deafening clatter of wood, and from the street, a group of riders appear in silvered armor and commanded by a man with a dragon-winged helm. The attackers scatter and retreat back into the alleys and shops they emerged. However, Viserys manages to cut one down before approaching their growth. In the silence after, Brella lowers her weapon, breathing hard. Viserys meets her eyes for the first time. Recognition flickers there.
You have my thanks, sir.
Osmond Kettleback, wiping blood from his sword, leans in.
Your Grace, she's the Baratheon heir. She would make a valuable hostage. Enough to buy a kingdom of your own, eh? I am not about to kidnap a woman I just saved. Have you learned nothing from the last rebellion? I will not steal a woman's freedom for a crown I did not seek.
Instead, Viserys trots up and lifts his visor. Now, it's Brella's turn to be surprised when she sees his sharp Valyrian features. Yet, he graciously clasps her hand and smiles.
An honor, Princess.
For a long heartbeat, the street holds its breath. Then, he sheathes his sword and offers a bow.
My second command will escort you home. The streets of Braavos are quiet, but not always safe.
Sir Barristan gives the faintest smile, pride warming his weathered face. He then orders his men to gather the princess and her siblings to be rounded up. Behind her, Walda and Mira are giggling as they see her cheeks color, and Jory pats her head.
Seems our little princess might have found her knight.
Shut up, Jory.
Brella watches as the dragon prince, the one her father cursed as a spawn of madness, bows slightly before her and turns away. As they leave, though, Osmond notes that the bodies they found belong to the Second Son's sellsword company. An investigation reveals that they were hired by one of the bankers acting on his own accord. He claims someone had suggested that kidnapping the princess might help the Iron Bank secure better terms in their loan. Unsurprisingly, this man is stripped of all titles and publicly executed as a show of contrition, while the bankers deny any involvement. The Second Sons run out of the city. Still, it is an opening for Renly and Littlefinger to demand more concessions, bringing negotiation to a quick end. Yet, they still cannot leave, as the summer winds are not favorable for sailing, forcing them to remain there for a while longer. Brella does not seem to mind, though, as she instead seeks out the Dragon Knights and their captain. As they are still waiting for their contract, Viserys decides to make an appearance and personally meet with the princess. Over the following days of their stay, she finds reasons to walk with him through Braavos, through the markets, the canals, the festivals of the Sea Lord's court. They speak of duty, of family, of the scars their names carry. To Brella, he is not the monster her father's tales painted, but a man trying to be better than his blood. And to Viserys, she is not the usurper's daughter, but a stormborn girl who laughs freely and seems to enjoy his company.
I have to admit, you are not what I was expecting. I've long heard tales of Rhaegar and what he was like.
Yes, I've heard it all. He was taller, with sharper features, and he had those deep purple eyes. How he rode a horse as effortlessly as a Dothraki screamer, and looked like a warrior himself when he wielded his sword.
Clearly we haven't been listening to the same stories, my lord. My father told me he was a sniveling schemer, whose eyes were hungry and treacherous. He played the harp only to lure women to his bed, but, like the crow calling the raven black, From my father, I know. And that swung a sword more like a cutthroat than a knight.
Those are lies.
I know. I'm not foolish enough to think that those were true. Half the realm wouldn't have idolized a man like that. Samira had seen him a few times when she visited court. He said he was sad and mournful, that he had one eye to the stars.
I was just a boy when he died, but I remember him well enough. He was tall and graceful, like a bard who would sing to the gods, and yet he always seemed distant, almost cold, even to his wife. His mind wasn't with the affairs of men. Sebaristan said he spent more time with books of magic and prophecy than with his family.
He sounded like a man who was a slave to destiny. That's what I meant when I said you aren't like what I had heard in the stories. Your mind is on Earth.
It has to be if I'm to overcome the stigma my father left.
If it means anything, I do not think you as the same as your father. I don't see you as a villain or my enemy. Perhaps one day we can continue this conversation in the Seven Kingdoms.
Thank you, Princess. But our house's wounds, they run deep. I doubt I will ever be welcome back into Westeros.
As did the Baratheons and Martells, but those wounds have healed with the union of my father and mother. I'm living proof of that. Mother says even father loves her almost as much as he does Ned Stark. There is no reason for the Targaryens and Baratheons to be any different.
I would certainly hope so. The two of them talk all throughout the night, speaking of their fathers and the history of their houses, of what they wish to do given their station. When Jory comes to escort her back to their manse, she kisses the Dragon Knight's cheek and rides off. As soon as she gets home, she finds her sisters and Renly waiting for her, demanding to know everything. Yet, when Robert finds out about this, he is less than pleased. He is angry that the Targaryens would rear their head, much less try to associate with his children. The rage is something few of his children have ever seen, and sends them back in surprise. Samira barely manages to calm her husband down, and Brayla protests furiously.
Father, he has no interest in the crown. He saved me. Surely that counts for something.
I suppose. But that does not mean he is not considering taking the Iron Throne. He will not admit it. But how can we be sure he truly means that? I am to believe that he is happy simply being in exile?
You could let him come here and denounce the throne.
Are you mad? Welcome the dragons back. All that would do is bring out the roaches from where they were hiding.
Then perhaps it is better to come out now. We've known they've existed for a long time, but if they show themselves, then we may be able to deal with them. Better the thieves that you know than the ones you don't.
The Queen speaks truly, Your Grace. Viserys Targaryen remains a legitimate claim, but by letting him denounce that claim, it becomes illegitimate. It might give some houses second thought about backing him in the future. That may be true. Viserys has an army. He commands his own sellsword company.
The Dragon Knights. They number only 2,000 men.
Indeed. But who knows how many houses still harbor sympathies for them.
It is hardly a force to rally behind, but perhaps we could request he come alone, taking only trusted aides.
That would be acceptable. Very well. Fine. Send a letter and say he may come here and denounce the Iron Throne. However, he will not do anything else while he is here, and I will still decide whether we lift the exile.
These terms are reasonable enough and are sent out across the Narrow Sea. The rest of the houses on the continent soon get wind of this as well, including the Valerians, who watch with growing excitement at these new developments. Littlefinger had done his part well. Their original plan had been to have Brayla kidnapped on Essos to force Robert to invade there, but Viserys proved too honorable. So now, their next best option is to force Robert's hand while they are in the Seven Kingdoms. Illyrio and Littlefinger are already working to create the right circumstances. All Arryn has to do is ensure its fleet is ready to transport its army once things go south. Weeks later, the royal court gathers in Harrenhal, where this event is to take place. Robert gets word that Viserys has arrived in Maidenpool, accompanied only by Daenerys and Ser Barristan. The rest of his sellsword company is left in Braavos under the command of Ser Osmond. As they arrive, many small folk point and look up at Barristan the Bold. After his disappearance in the aftermath of the Trident, many had feared the old knight had passed away or quietly retired. Seeing him back is like seeing a legend come alive again, and people reach out to touch him or stare at him reverently. The same cannot be said for the Targaryen siblings. While a few cheer their name, this is one man for every 50. Others stare at them angrily, recalling those they had lost in the fires of King's Landing, or blaming them for the dead during the rebellion. Some are even less subtle, shouting and cursing them in the open. Ser Barristan tries to protect his charge, but Viserys weathers it all with quiet pride, riding through the riverlands. Some lords are equally cold, giving him only what is necessary, but others are warmer. They invite him to their keeps and shower him with gifts, pledging themselves as having always been proud Targaryen men. Viserys accepts this all with wary courtesy, not wishing to cause any trouble. He instead keeps his head down, and his party rounds up the God's Eye all the way to Harrenhal. There, when he sees her again amidst the royal delegation, does Viserys feel emotions stirring within him. Braella is in the sea of lords, as representatives from almost every house had come out to witness this historic event. Robert stands at the end of the Hall of 100 Hearts, his hand gripping his warhammer tightly. Beside him stands his wife, with her arms folded. Though she is better at containing her emotions, there is a flicker of disapproval in her eyes. On either side are nearly 24 bastards, each wearing the colors of their houses: Umbers, Glovers, Freys, Smallwoods, Craycalls, Corbrays, Templetons, Yornwoods, Fowlers, Florence, Boltleys, and more. But his eyes are on Braella, who offers a nod and flashes him a smile. Viserys kneels before the king and touches his head to the ground.
Your Grace, I come here not as a prince, but as a simple sellsword captain, one who wishes no ill towards you. Ask any trade prince in Bravos, any magister in Pentos, or archon in Lys and Myr, and they shall tell you that I have had no ambition for the throne. I am a simple man. I do not need to rule, only for my name not to be tarnished by the crimes of the Mad King. If relinquishing my claim is what it takes to mend those wounds, I will gladly do so.
The whole hall goes silent. A few lords look pale as death. Others shake their heads in disbelief, and some seem angry, as if every word is an insult. But amongst the Baratheons he sees Stannis looking stern as ever, Renly nodding in approval, and even Samira's expression softens. Robert appears impassive as he waves his hand, but then slowly he steps closer.
I am glad to see I am not dealing with another Mad King here, and much less another Rhaegar. If you have come in acting like some long-lost prince, I would have gutted you. But I am pleased to see you understand the reality of the world we live in. The dragon's time has passed, and instead you seek to strike your fortune elsewhere. I cannot say I wish you luck, but I will also no longer consider you an enemy, so long as you say the words. I, Viserys Targaryen, with the realm and the gods as my witness, do solemnly swear that I shall never again press my claim to the Iron Throne. Then I, King Robert, first of his name, accept this abdication, and pardon Viserys Targaryen of all crimes.
Though it was meant to be a conciliatory gesture, both Viserys and Barristan's bodies stiffen as they register the insult. While the realm erupts in cheers, they stare at the king. It is Robert's way to express superiority over them, as if they had crimes to be cleansed, and not as if Viserys was simply a victim of circumstance. Braella looks at her friend and tries her best not to wince, but Viserys offers a reassuring smile. The Hall of 100 Hearts soon transforms into a feasting hall, where once cracked stone and charred timbers spoke of ruin, now banners hang, candles blaze, and the music of harps fill the air. Robert drinks deep at the high table, his warhammer resting against the throne of Harrenhal as he enjoys drinking with his wife. Braella glides through the crowd in a gown of orange and gold, her hair braided with Dornish pearls. She scans the gathering until her eyes find him, Viserys, standing uncertain at the edge of the floor, Barristan behind him like a watchful shadow. When their eyes meet, the noise of the hall seems to dim. Braella smiles, and he inclines his head, making her way toward her.
Your Grace.
If you call me that again, I'll make you dance with every sister I have.
And she has many. The bastards of Robert and Samira gather about her like a flock of sparrows. Rowan Storm, Marya Snow, Walder Rivers, Rolf Pike, Little Jon Snow of Last Hearth, who is now even taller than Braella. Elise Flowers. One by one, they test him with jests and barbs. They wish to drink with him, to hear his exploits as a sellsword. A few daring siblings urge him to dance with them. Walder wishes to spar, and Rolf wishes to play the finger dance with him. Elise immediately calls for a dance. They swarm him, each one different, but with similar high expectations. Yet somehow he manages to win them over, thanks to a little help from Braella. Slowly, laughter replaces suspicion. Tomard claps him on the back. Myria teases that Braella smiles too much when she is near, and soon even Rowan admits that the Targaryen carries himself better than most lordlings. Across the hall, Daenerys is no less busy. She flirts among the young lordlings of the court, her silver hair a marvel to many who have never thought to see such beauty outside of old tales. Lordlings from the Vale and Riverlands fawn over her, enchanted by her grace. Renly, wine-flushed and grinning, whispers to Brayla.
If I ever doubted your taste, niece, I do so no longer. Gods, I think half the hall is falling in love tonight, yourself included.
Samira notices too. The Martell Queen studies her daughter's laugh, the light in her eyes as she twirls with Viserys across the floor. When she returns to Robert's side, she leans close.
Look at her, Robert. When was the last time you saw her smile so freely?
Robert scowls into his cup. He sees only a dragon amongst his kin, a reminder of fire and blood. He says nothing, but his grip on the cup tightens.
So happy with him, of all people. It is as if the gods are mocking me.
Oh, hush, Robert. Don't focus on Viserys. Look at your daughter.
Robert pauses and glances over to her. Brayla was spinning in Viserys' arm, but she was smiling, her face lost in the music as she enjoyed herself. He has to admit it helps ease the tension in his chest, but still, he remains troubled.
And yet, he is still a dragon. It is a poor match. Some would say the same with you and Lyanna. I was the Lord of Storm's End, and a drunk, and a whoremonger. I'm sorry to say, but you were, and Lyanna noticed.
Indeed, and I'm sure you looked at Lyanna the same way Viserys looks at our daughter.
Oh yes, in the tourney of Harrenhal. He was looking so much that he lost focus and got himself unhorsed.
Gods, I wish I were there to see that.
All right, enough. Gods, I hate when you two are in the same room together.
For now, peace holds. The music swells, goblets clink, and Brayla and Viserys linger close. But beyond the feast, storm clouds gather. In the Reach, quarrels flare between bannermen. In the Westerlands, Jaime Lannister whispers in Lysa Tully's ears, and Udmere Tully begins to make choices that sour half his vassals under pressure from his sister and brother-in-law, who threaten to withhold funds. Most dangerous of all is Harrenhal itself, where Old Lady Went has no heirs. House Goodbrook presses their blood claim, but they are known to have been a loyalist for the Targaryens. Meanwhile, the Mallisters are proud and ancient house with close ties to the Iron Throne. The Goodbrooks call this bias and continue punishment for crimes they have atoned for. They insist the castle is theirs, and even go as far as to begin hiring sellswords. Some begin to arrive along the Trident and rally around Lord Haraway's tent. Among the sellswords they hire, a river barge is intercepted that reveals payments and a contract for the Dragon Knights. To many it looks as if Viserys has broken his oath already. The Dun Fort quakes beneath Robert Baratheon's fury. His warhammer slams against the flagstone, the echo ringing through the vaulted chamber until even the torches seem to flicker in fear.
The bloody Dragon Knights march under Goodbrook banners. I knew it. I should have split that silver-haired whelp's skull the moment he set foot in my hall. Robert, he's a sellsword. He was hired for a contract, which does not mean he intends to commit treason. Open your eyes, Ned. The Goodbrooks have always been friendly to the dragons. They fought for them during the rebellion, and they never hid their sympathies. And now they gather swords and try to size up the most important castle in the realm. Coincidence? I think not. So, what if that is the case? He's not crowned himself or declared you illegitimate. What will you do? Hunt him down and take his head?
Robert turns his gaze towards his family and bannermen. Many stare in a mixture of anger and fear. Others are shocked and shake their head. But with Brayla, there is only horror. It causes the king's anger to slacken slightly.
For the sake of fondness my daughter has for him, I will not kill Viserys unless he resists, but I will throw him in the dungeons and leave him to rot.
Ned nods. It was as close to a compromise as he expected to reach with Robert. Along with Jon Arryn and Stannis, they agree to arrest the prince. However, a letter soon arrives with Viserys' handwriting. Your Grace, I did not send them. If men march beneath my name, it is without my command. I will recall them at once, and answer for the shame they bring me, but I will not confess to treasons I did not commit. The court gasps. Robert's eyes burn, bloodshot from wine and wrath. He takes 2 steps down from the dais, his massive frame blotting out the torchlight as he calls for his bannermen to arrest him.
Father, listen to him. He speaks the truth. He'll recall the sellswords and end this before any blood is spilled.
Enough, girl. You will not speak for me. If you wish to rule, then you should learn to see the difference between men and snakes. I will ride out and deal with this. but you shall remain here.
Rather than remain in Harrenhal, which has been seized by the Goodbrooks, who easily overpower the Went forces, Viserys instead chooses to run, gathering Ser Barristan, Daenerys, and what followers he has. They gallop off in the night. Lord Goodbrook provides him with a list of houses still friendly to the Targaryens, and that helps shelter them just as the first riders arrive in the Riverlands and see Edmure calls for their arrest. And behind it all, Littlefinger's web spreads lies and poison. Letters are forged to mislead armies, bribes thin levies. So when Robert marches, he arrives with a smaller army than he had expected. Meanwhile, weapons and gold are sent to opposing houses and even the mountain clans. So when the Knights of the Vale ride out, they fall into an ambush and lose the first battle even before reaching the Riverlands. And across the Seven Kingdoms, coin and the promise of new leadership spur the houses into action. In the Reach, old houses whisper that dragons are rising again. Discontent sparks small flames of rebellion. A few houses, ever loyal to Targaryen memory, raise their banners once more. This forces Robert to leave as many of his men arrive, so when he begins his campaign, it is with 8,000 men instead of 18. Still, the North and most of the Reach, Stormlands, Dorne, and Vale reaffirm their alliance and promise more troops. He marches through castle to castle, village to village, and conducts a search. It is only thanks to the cleverness of their lords, Viserys' own talent and hit-and-run tactics, and Littlefinger's web of spies that he manages to remain one step ahead of them. As they pass Maidenpool, ships slip across the narrow sea, and the banners of Driftmark unfurl above them. Soon, the town is taken, and a host of sellswords and allies from the east arrive, all proclaiming their support for Viserys. House Valyrian declares for Viserys. Their fleet sweeps into the Blackwater Bay, cutting off the king's ships and sealing the sea lanes. Stannis tries to organize the royal fleet, and they clash a dozen times off the coast. But aided by sell sails from the narrow sea, the Valyrians manage to cling on. From the west comes worse news still. Jaime Lannister has called his banners, and the lions march to the Riverlands, and the area around the Golden Tooth burns. Suddenly, Robert finds himself forced to retreat as he risks being surrounded. The Riverlords fall into chaos, with some rising in support of the king and rallying with the armies, and others leading desperate guerrilla wars. More news from the Iron Bank arrives, as the same bankers who arrested earlier confess. He was hired by the allies of Viserys to stage the whole kidnapping in order to win trust of Robert and get Viserys back into the Seven Kingdoms. All said perfectly, just as Magister Illyrio had instructed the man to do. Robert's fury is boundless. He calls the banners of Storm's End, of Winterfell, of the Eyrie. While this happens, Braella is confined to her chambers until one night when her uncle Renly slips into her chambers, smelling of wine and mischief.
Oh, the things I do for love. If you must play the queen, better to do it where it matters. The realm won't wait for Robert's moods. Now come, your prince is in distress. He needs a lady in shining armor.
Outside, Jory, Walder, and Walda all stand ready. Their other siblings soon join them, and they ride off into the night. From the tower, Samira watches and clenches her fist. Someone will need to keep the court occupied, and she and those too young to go to war will remain there to buy them some time. Across the narrow sea, Illyrio Mopantis smiles in his manse. His gold buys mercenaries by the hundreds, Bravosi sellswordsmen, Pentosi sailors, Lycian crossbowmen. They gather at Maidenpool, a flood of steel and coin swelling behind Viserys' name. The Valyrians also send men and ships to join them. But soon the Dragon Knights will serve as the crown jewel of their army. Eventually Viserys learns of this and regroups with them. Taking trusted guides from the Riverlands, he is escorted to their camp, where he is greeted by Oren and Jaime, who bow before him.
The realm will never accept you unless you prove you can command men. I can keep Robert occupied while you lead the sellswords to victory. I only wish to make peace. I wish to sail back to Essos.
I'm afraid that is no longer possible. The wildfire has been released from the pot. Robert now sees you as a traitor. There is only his death or his revenge.
It is true. He will hunt you even if he has to conquer all of Essos. But if you win here, you can at least dictate the peace. And what is it exactly that you both want? We want to go back to the good old days. In the past, it was the Valerians and Lannisters who helped build up the Targaryen dynasty. Why not have it again? With the Lannister gold, Valerian ships, and Targaryen fire, you can reforge the Targaryen dynasty. With you both in command, I assume.
I only request that you consider naming me your hand.
And marry my daughter, Marcella.
Viserys resists at first, but the chaos is spreading through the Riverlands, and he hears more of Robert's rage and hatred, which bubbles to the surface. It is clear that peace is no longer an option, so instead he agrees to take command and organize a two-pronged assault. Jaime takes command of the Westermen and hammers the Reachmen and Stormlanders who arrive from the south. He fights several inconclusive battles with Robert while rallying in Riverlords to bolster his army. Meanwhile, Viserys halts the Valemen's advance. At the head of his assault are his Dragon Knights. Each time they ride forward, their famed dragon wings clatter in the wind, frightening horses and actually marching the Valemen for their horsemanship. Though few in numbers, their skill earns them the respect of their foes, who come to refer to them by a new name, the Winged Hussars. Robert answers in fury. The Northmen, Valemen, Reachmen, and Dornish ride to his call. Yet the Baratheon host and the Lannisters, Targaryens, and Valerians strike them hard, aiming to keep them divided. Lightning raids burn across the riverlands, breaking levees before they can join up with the largest hosts. Villages fall, bridges collapse, supply trains vanish into smoke. Brela's bastard siblings, Rowan Storm, Littlejohn of Lasthearth, Jory Sand, and the bastards of the twins ride to gather men from wherever. Those from birthhouses, hedge knights who hope for a favor, and any wayward men-at-arms. Their forces swell, an unorthodox army of half-kin and sworn swords as they arrive at the salt pans where Viserys is assembling. When Brea and her siblings at last find Viserys, it is not in triumph, but in exhaustion, beneath the banners of the stag and dragon. She seizes his hand.
My father will never yield, not for you, not for me. But my uncles are not guided by hatred. Uncle Ned fights for duty, not love. Grandfather John fights for honor, not desire. None of them wants this war. Force him to the table, Viserys, and the rest will thank you for ending it.
And if Robert refuses?
Then we can run. Leave this all behind. Sail to the Free Cities or Karth, even Yiti, if necessary. All that's left to do is run. You'll be the prince, and I'll be the princess.
Brela, I've lived my entire life running from your father's wrath, from the shame of my father, from the shadow of the dragons. I wanted to prove I'm above that, to prove I am worthy of respect, but I will not sacrifice my pride for it. I will not spend my years having to swallow the shame of my father's actions because I know I am above it. I know I am worthy of respect. Don't you agree?
You are, Viserys. You've always been worthy.
They linger only to gather more reinforcements from across the narrow sea, and once those arrive, they march off to war. But that is where the prince notices banners he does not trust, the second songs among his ranks. He remembers Brela's near abduction in Bravos, and how his men had recognized the bodies as members of the Sellsword Company. Later that night, he had their captain brought before him. Though Viserys detests torture, Jory Sand is more than happy to oblige, and after a few hours on the rack, Marrow confesses he had been hired by Oren to kidnap the princess. They had hoped that Viserys would be ruthless enough to try and use her as leverage to invade the Seven Kingdoms and ally with them. As Viserys hears this, his blood chills as he looks out the banner, seeing himself surrounded by banners of the Valerians and Lannisters. He realizes for the first time that Robert isn't the greatest foe he has to face. Quickly, he sends fresh orders to his Dragon Knights and to the other sellswords in Brela. The trap is set. Viserys leaks word of his position to Robert, drawing him to a strong defensive ground. Hills flanked by woods, the kind of field where hammers falter. He arranges his lines carefully, the Valerian and Lannister men in the vanguard, where the first crush of Baratheon steel will smash them. The sellswords he trusts, those from honorable companies, are kept close to him to form a tight defensive barrier alongside half the Dragon Knights and Brela and her siblings. The other half of the Dragon Knights slips out into the dead of night to meet up with Renly, who's gathered a small army of supporters to reinforce them. The horns sound. Robert charges, warhammer raised, smashing through the front line in a storm of blood. Valerian and Lannister ranks shatter, trying to hold the royalists, but the reinforcements they call from the sellswords are half-hearted. He keeps the line steady, but lets Oren and Jaime absorb the brunt of the fighting. The trap tightens as they are brushed back. Viserys sporadically sends sellswords out to reinforce them as he keeps his eye on the slopes beyond. Then the winged Hussars arrive. From the woods, Renly Baratheon bursts forth, Loras Tyrell close behind, and followed by Stormlander loyalists and rebellion Reachmen. Coming down the mountainside, they turn the tide, shining armor and wings. It's an army of kings. At their head, their captain raises his spear.
You dare harm our prince? Westerosi, are you ready to die? We will seek our vengeance eye for an eye. In this field, you are facing only our hate.
They crash into Stannis' flank, pinning him down, and then sweep into Robert's rear. Renly himself engages his brother in a duel. As their swords clash, Stannis tries to knock Renly off his horse, but he barely manages to keep his saddle.
Just what do you think you're doing, brother? You turn your back on Robert? On your own family? You think I'm fighting for Viserys? No, I'm doing this for Brayla. Brayla? That foolish girl is responsible for this. She allowed this prince to arrive here, and her attraction to blind her.
He doesn't expect a sudden downward slash that leaves his arm rattling. Renly looks down at his brother, the warmth drained from his face as he attacks again.
She is young and stupid and in love. But the only ones blind are you two fools. We could have ended this war without a drop of blood being spilled. The rebellion ended nearly 2 decades ago, and yet Robert still lets his hatred dictate his rule. All the while, his daughter, our niece, gets caught up in it. Then she should have done her duty. Duty? Is that the mantle you drape yourself around? You followed Robert dutifully for 15 years, through starvation and abuse. And what has that gotten you?
He parries another blow from Stannis and takes a deep breath.
Storm's End should have been yours. I'll give it to you, but please, brother, just for once, follow your heart. You've done your duty. No one denies that. But ask yourself, after seeing where it brought you, is that a path you truly wish for our niece?
And for the first time, Stannis pauses. He doubts himself. Soon the rearguard breaks, or perhaps simply opens its gaps. With the chaos of the battle, it is difficult to tell, but gaps open and men rush forward. On the left, Ser Barristan meets Jaime in single combat. The Kingslayer's sword is swift, but Barristan fights with the experience of a man years his senior, and the fury and purpose of a knight fulfilling his vows. The clash drives them through the press of soldiers. Men give way, knowing instinctively not to interfere. Jaime thrusts low, feints high, and nearly slips past Barristan's guard, but he twists away at the last second.
You're slowing, old man.
Barristan riposts, slicing sparks from Jaime's pauldron and nearly grazing his cheek. Jaime pushes the blade aside and tries to move closer, but the older knight keeps him at bay.
You are passed over from our order. Of all the madness in Aerys' reign, that was perhaps his wisest move.
Jaime growls and presses harder, anger bleeding into his strikes. Barristan sees the fury in his eyes and stands ready, halting each strike. He parries the blow and then slams his mauled fist into Jaime's chest to throw him back. Jaime snarls and shoves forward, strength and youth in his favor. For a heartbeat, it seems the Kingslayer will drive the bold to his knees, but Barristan shifts, twisting like a serpent, and Jaime stumbles into open ground. That is all the old knight needs. One clean stroke and the blade shears through Jaime's guard, biting deep into the joint of his neck. The Golden Lion staggers, his sword falling limp from his fingers. He sinks to the ground, helm tumbling from his hand, blood seeping between his gorget and his throat.
You might have been the best of us, or you might have sullied your vows.
On the right, Jory Rowan and the others corner Oren Waters. His men cannot save him, and he is dragged from his horse, screaming as Brayla's siblings bind his hands. And in the center, Robert and Viserys meet. The dragon orders a charge and gallops forward. As he rides out, Viserys feels the entire world around him change. Atop his horse, he sees the light from the setting sun reflect along the battlefield. His eyes pick up every small detail along these few hills. The faces of his comrades, the screams of his enemies, and the banner of his foe. Robert Baratheon is smashing through the crumbling Lannister lines, clashing with Ser Barristan. But as Viserys presses between them, his sword catches Robert's hammer and pushes it aside. The king looks out in surprise, but it is quickly replaced by anger when he sweeps the weapon toward him.
So at last you show yourself, coward. Have you at last come to answer for your crimes? I'll go where the light goes, be it throne or be it cage, so my life reflects the truth that I lived, your grace. But I will not live by the story you have made for me.
The clash of the warhammer and sword rings louder than the horns. Robert fights like a storm he is, every blow shaking Viserys to his bones. But Viserys fights on, his body shaking and refusing to break. But while his body moves, his mind races to the memory of his family's ruin burning in his heart. In that moment, he feels them behind him, the fire of 1,000 burning lights, ancestors crowned and fallen, Rhaegar with a harp and sword, Aegon the Conqueror upon Balerion's wings, and the faceless multitudes of Targaryens gone to ash. And there they call to him, to a hillside of heroes who will welcome him. He strikes, quick and desperate, blade flashing in arcs of silver, and lands a cut across Robert's neck. It is shallow, and he sweeps his hammer, sending Viserys stumbling aside. Robert's blow drives Viserys back, step after step, every strike threatening to shatter his bones. But the fire in him refuses to die. He recalls Brayla's words, spoken beneath torchlight, when they were united. You've always been worthy. And as the hammer falls again, his sword shivers in his grip and catches the hammer strike. Those words echo throughout him, again and again. I've always been worthy. Viserys lunges, blade biting shallow into Robert's pauldron. The king barely flinches. With a roar, he hammers down, the force shaking Viserys' bones. and the sword slips from his grasp. The king raises his weapon for the killing stroke, and then a halberd catches it and pushes it aside. Brayla throws herself before him.
I won't let you harm him.
Step aside, girl. I don't want to hurt you.
You'll have to hurt more than just him if you want him to hurt, father.
To her left, Jory walks forward, axe slung on his shoulder. Walder and Walda slam their swords against their shields. Little John unslings a massive greatsword. Rowan strings his bow, and more of his siblings arrive. Those who had ridden her now rally to her side. Robert can only marvel at the sight of them standing against her and stares.
What is the meaning of this?
What you've taught me. That we are family. We stand together no matter what, even when you are wrong.
For the first time in years, Robert hesitates. The battlefield stills around them. His daughter's eyes burn into his. Robert's breath heaves, the hammer shaking in his hands. Slowly, with a curse bitter as bile, he lowers it. The rebellion dies not with conquest, but with exhaustion. The Valerians in chains, Jaime slain, Oren captured, the Dragon Prince alive. As Oren is interrogated, he reveals everything that had occurred. He corroborates Mero's story. They had tried to instigate a war. Him, the Lannisters, Littlefinger, all the people Robert had trusted. The news nearly sends the king to his knees. But as he recovers himself, he realizes what an utter fool he had been to trust them. He looks at Viserys and Brayla and falls to his knees. Yet, rather than shame him, they guide him to his feet. For his confession, Oren is sent to the wall, while Cersei is executed along with the other conspirators. Castle Rock passes to Tyrion and Storm's End to Stannis, while Renly marries Margaery Tyrell. And Brella and Viserion, at last, wed with Robert's blessing. That's our theory. Westeros is a land filled with exciting stories and possibilities, and we love exploring them. If you want to accompany us on this journey across the Seven Kingdoms and beyond, then please like, share, and subscribe to our channel.